This is the 2022 Kia EV6. The EV6 is Kia's first car built on the new eGMP platform, or Electric Global Modular Platform, which is a Hyundai global platform that also underpins the Ioniq 5 and 6. This is also the first car to follow Kia's new naming strategy for electric vehicles, EV followed by the number. And the number indicates its position in the lineup. Logical, fancy. My name is Robin Warner, an experienced engineer and magazine editor, and I guess now also video presenter person. Still working on that title. I review all kinds of cars, from a $25,000 Ford Maverick to a $425,000 Rolls-Royce Cullinan. I'll happily jump into Honda Accords, BMW M3s, and Porsche 911 GT3s. And I have fun every time. Please subscribe and join me. Anyway, let's take a closer look at this new Kia. This particular EV6 is a GT line EV6, and it is rear-wheel drive, and it is painted in a color called Steel Matte Gray, which is a $695 optional paint. And as you can see from the front, it definitely has these sleek headlights, and it's got this interesting pattern in the grille here, but it's not an actual grille, of course, because it's an EV. It's definitely a swoopy, sleek kind of front end, and pretty short as well, because, you know, you don't have a lot to store under here. Looking at the car in profile, you definitely see that we've got this long wheelbase right here and short overhangs on the front and in the back. And I'll go ahead and put dimensions up on the screen right now, as you can see. So this wheelbase is actually around the same as a Kia Telluride, but as you can see, it's not nearly as big as that. You can also see that it's got this steeply raked windshield that kind of flows into this roof here, roof mounted spoiler for all that needed downforce, and then a very slick looking fastback kind of shape right here, which blends into another small spoiler on the back, which I guess is necessary. I do like the shape in general. I think it looks very nice in profile, and the shark fin antenna is a nice touch on top. These are 19-inch wheels, very sleek and aerodynamic looking wheels with low rolling resistance tires on them. It's 19-inch wheels across the board for the Kia EV6, but 20s are optional. The charge port for the Kia EV6 is really nicely hidden into the rear here, and opens electronically via a button in the dash. And you've got a couple of indicators right here. This is the level of charge right here, and this is how you close the port right here. But as you can see, I opened the charge port back up because I wanted to show you this right here. This is what they call a V2L port, vehicle to load port. And take a close look. That is AC power that you can get from the car's battery. So you can use the car's battery to power other things while you're out. So the way it works is you plug it in, turn it on, plug in whatever you want, and you're providing power for whatever you want. That's properly convenient right there. Looking at the car from the back, I do actually like the way this looks back here, and you get this nice big new Kia logo right there. And it's cool that this light bar goes just horizontally across the entire width of the car. And, you know, good stylistic choices here with the black down here matching the steel gray paint. And there's no pet peeve with tailpipes, because there's no tailpipes. And it's a hatchback, which means you get hatchback storage. That is 24 cubic feet of storage right there. Nice little privacy panel right here. And if you need more space and don't need to carry any people in the second row, now you have 50 cubic feet of storage. All right, let's check out inside. Actually, no, it's not quite time to show you inside, because this Kia has something called Remote Smart Parking Assist, and that means I can do this. So let me first show you on the key fob. I have this button here, hold, and then forward motion, reverse motion. So first I'm gonna lock the car, then I'm gonna hold this down. Look at this. So you can pull into or out of a parking spot without any trouble at all. And then when you're done, just lift off the key fob. All right, now let's back it back up again. Come on, come on. You know, before I could drive, I had remote control cars, and now I can drive, and I've been able to drive for a while, and now I have cars and remote controlled cars all in one. All right, now let's take a look inside. It's not a terribly big car, but because it is an EV with the battery pack on the floor, we have an entirely flat floor right here. That's really nice. And we also have adjustable seat backs. So with this lever right here, I can fold the seat all the way down or hold the lever and put it up at a seat back level I want. So pretty straight up, or lean back even further. Also, Kia says that a lot of this interior is, you know, made from sustainable sources and has vegan leathers and all these kinds of other things. So, you know, just to give you a general sense of what we're talking about here. But what we do have is quite a bit of space. I am 5'11" or 181 centimeters tall, and yet you can see here I have several inches of leg room. It's a pretty high seat bottom, so I have decent thigh support, and I also have a little bit of headroom and good shoulder, hip room, and all those kinds of things. Little map pocket right here. Not much going on here, but I do have center armrest with cup holders. Hey, hey, hey. And one other little neat trick to show you. I showed you that V to L port on the outside. Well, there's a second one right there. All right, let's go check out those front seats. Oh, and one little thing I wanted to point out. Behind this, you know, seamless door handle is an actual spot for the key. More vegan interior right here, bask in it. We also have, you know, power windows, power locks, 2-position seat memory. Just like in the back, it's an entirely flat floor, and this seat is not only vegan, whatever that means, but also power adjusting, and we have lumbar support too, which is always nice. You do have tilt and telescope steering. It is right there. It is manually adjusted. You are looking at two 12.3-inch screens right here, one right next to the other. The first is your 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster. The second is your center console touchscreen. Power button is right here, foot on the brake. And here are the screens lit up. The car is running, ready to go. And the screen is real easy to use. You just use your finger to slide over to the different menu, and you have actually 2 pages worth of menu options. And there's a lot of things to go on right here. I'm not going to dig into all of that, but I will tell you that you do get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but it is a wired system. You do have dual zone climate control, which is lovely. You also have heated and ventilated seats. They're right here, and you have 3 levels of adjustment there. You do have a wireless smartphone charger right here, couple of cup holders, and more space down there. You do also have lots of charge ports, standard USB right there, USB Type-C right there, more down here, another USB Type-C, and a standard cigarette lighter style plug right there. The Prindle is a dial right here, so with my foot on the brake, turn clockwise to go to drive, counterclockwise to get reverse, press the button for park. You do also have auto hold and those functions right there. On the steering wheel itself, you have lots more controls. Highway driving assist, adaptive cruise control right there. Some media options over here. And down here is drive modes. You get 3 drive modes: Eco, Normal, and Sport. But actually you get 4. Hold it down and there's snow. I don't know why you have to hold down for snow, but hey, I guess it's a special circumstance. We do have paddle shifters, up, down, or down, up. Kind of depends on how you look at it, because obviously there's no gears in this car. What these paddle shifters adjust is the amount of regen you get when you lift off the throttle. You can choose between 5 different levels. 0, which is basically just coasting, or levels 1, 2, or 3, and that's just gradual increases of deceleration you get when you just lift off the throttle, or you can go all the way to I pedal, which is the most amount of deceleration you'll get when you're lifting off the throttle, and in this mode, the car will come to a complete stop. So if you are in I pedal mode, you can drive this car with one foot using the accelerator to go and stop completely. This car is super fascinating and it's been really cool to show you around, but I really want to take it for a drive. Let's go. As I already said, this is specifically a Kia EV6 GT line rear wheel drive. And that makes this the top of 3 trims in the lineup, ahead of the light and wind trims. However, trims are just the beginning of it. Both the wind and GT line versions are available as rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive models. And that isn't just the fact that both axles get power, it's that you get an additional 95 horsepower and 188 pound-feet of torque because it adds a second motor to the front axle. The base trim or the light trim is rear-wheel drive only, and not only that, it actually gets one smaller motor, so you get 167 horsepower, but still the same 258 pound-feet of torque. The light trimmed Kia EV6 is also the only one with the smaller or standard battery pack, which is 58 kilowatt hours instead of 77.4 kilowatt hours, and that does reduce the range to a still respectable 232 miles. That means that the larger 77.4 kilowatt hour battery pack delivers 310 miles of range for the rear-wheel drive EV6s and 274 miles of range for the all-wheel drive EV6s. So those are very respectable numbers. Clearly the light trim is kind of the least equipped trim on a lot of levels for the EV6. The good news is it's also by far the least expensive. Base price for an EV6 Lite is $42,695, whereas the base price of my test car, this GT line, is $52,995. And because my test car also has a couple of options, its out-the-door price is actually $53,985. And if you're curious, I do have the options listed in the description along with the specs. One thing worth pointing out, of course, these prices are before any federal and state incentives you might get when purchasing this car. When it comes to the price, much of the difference between the GT line and the Lite are down to the drivetrain and the battery pack. However, the GT line does also get some additional features. You get that vehicle to load port thing I showed you. You get those auto pop-out door handles, which are fun. You get some extra driving assist features, and there's some styling features as well, like body colored instead of black parts of the body, those types of things. All right, let's dig into the powertrain a little bit more. Power itself isn't abundant, but it's certainly stout, and another big advantage of electric motors, and that's definitely the case here, is the immediacy of response. The second you hit the accelerator, you get the reaction right away. Another facet of this powertrain, especially with EVs, is charging and charging capacity, and one thing that this Kia has is the ability to charge at 350 kilowatts. That means this car has an 800 volt system, and that also means that you can charge from 10% to 80% battery charge in 18 minutes. Actually, Kia says less than 18 minutes. I also really like the 5 different levels of deceleration you get when you lift off the throttle, being able to play with that and suit your needs. For me personally, I really like the idea of one pedal driving, getting used to that and really just having this nice one analog movement that dictates speeding up and slowing down in the car. But, you know, if you don't like that, or if you just feel like coasting, you have that option, and I think that's great. You're still charging the battery pack when you slow down, but you have brake integration doing that instead of just lifting off the throttle. Regardless of which trim of EV6 you get, this car is not light, but it does vary between 4,017 pounds and 4,661 pounds. Now, a lot of that weight is also going all-wheel drive, so even though this is the top trim, because it's rear-wheel drive, this one weighs 4,255 pounds. And depending on which trim you get, that also affects the acceleration you get. The light trimmed Kia EV6 goes 0 to 60 miles an hour in 8 seconds, so says Kia. But if you get the Wind or GT line rear wheel drive, that drops to 7.2 seconds with the additional horsepower from that motor. And if you go all wheel drive, despite being heavier, that drops to 5.1 seconds, 0 to 60, according to Kia. That is a healthy number. Thank the 446 pound-feet of torque you get. When it comes to EVs, range is on the top of many people's minds, but something that should be thought about more and more is fuel economy or fuel economy equivalence, and that's because the efficiency of the car is important because it will dictate how long it takes you to recharge when you're fast charging. It will also dictate how much it costs to recharge when you're charging on your level 2 or even a level 1. So this has very impressive numbers, I would say. 134 miles to the gallon equivalent in the city, 101 on the highway, 117 combined. Again, that's hard to wrap your head around when you're talking about EVs. It's just a totally different category. But as more and more EVs come into the fray, it's good for us to learn and start being able to compare these as well. But again, these fuel economy numbers don't make tons of sense just yet, at least not intuitively. And they're also not nearly as much fun as talking about accelerating. I gave you Kia's claim numbers, but how does it feel to accelerate in this EV6? Let me show you. All right, everybody, time for an acceleration test in this rear-wheel drive electric Kia EV6. I've got the car in sport mode. I've got all the assistance off. I've got traction control off. And let's see how it goes. I'll do a bit of brake torque, but I don't think it'll do anything. Yeah, doesn't do anything. And off we go. Kind of eases into it a little bit. You know, it wasn't some immediate lunge back, but then you get this very smooth and really solid acceleration. You know, this is only the rear-wheel drive version of this car. So we've got 225 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque, nowhere near what the all-wheel drive version has. And yet it was perfectly potent in terms of accelerating off. Yeah, solid acceleration, nothing groundbreaking from 225 horsepower and over 2 tons of weight to push around, but perfectly respectable in terms of what this car is. So yeah, strong acceleration. All right. It's more than a straight line sometimes. Roads have corners sometimes. You got to make it around those corners, right? So it's good to know how a car like this handles. Let me show you that right now. All right, everybody, time for a handling test. I do have the EV6 in sport mode. I do have all the brake regen off, so it's going to coast. And I have the stability and traction control off as well. Let's see how it goes. Yeah. Good acceleration from that rear-wheel drive motor. Not a lot of grip, but good balance. There wasn't massive understeer or anything, and really nice throttle as well. It was super easy to add throttle as we exited the corner. Oh yeah, a little bit of body roll, you know, more than a little bit of body roll, but you know, really decent grip considering that these must be low rolling resistant tires. I was surprised with chassis bounce. We got less understeer than I expected. Still understeer at the limit. Not a lot of grip, but actually a little bit more than I expected. Good body control. Good front end response, although front end feel from the steering is pretty much non-existent, and it's a little bit lighter than I'd like as well. Overall, perfectly reasonable solid handling from this Kia EV6. Yeah, fun, actually. Now, something that would be more common in a car like this is ride comfort and also what it's like to drive on the interstate. It is a very comfortable car. It is heavy, but all that weight is very low to the ground. So it has a very low center of gravity and feels very stable. This eGMP platform is a nice and solid structure, and the suspension is tuned well to give you a comfortable ride. It floats over bumps and heaves in the road without any trouble. And that's true on roads like this or on the interstate. I took it out there. Let me show you that. But actually, briefly before I do, this car has something called Highway Driving Assist 2. So an up-level version of Highway Driving Assist that these cars have already had. And that means that in addition to adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assist, this also will change lanes for you when you need it to and do some other things like that. Now, I didn't get into that too much on the interstate. I mainly focused on noise levels and comfort levels, but I did want to make you aware at least. Anyway, let me show you that. Time for a trip on the interstate, see how this Kia EV6 feels, and we are going to go ahead and try the adaptive cruise control, and it does have some, lane centering, lane keeping assist, those types of things, so we'll have that on as well, but mostly concerned about road noise, wind noise, and those types of things. So let's get started here. I've got the car up to speed with traffic. Turn on the adaptive cruise control now. We're going with traffic right around 78 miles an hour. Got lots of indicators on the screen. We have a screen that shows where the Kia is, and then you've got these little blocks of traffic that are popping up to give you a sense of what the Kia sees, and that's really interesting. As you would probably guess, engine noise is fantastic. A big advantage of electric motors is how inherently smooth and quiet they are. So that's always a nice thing on the interstate, to not have to worry about that at all. RPMs of the motor are pretty much irrelevant because they're really quiet no matter what. But that does give you the added burden of hearing wind noise and road noise. And I have to say, wind noise especially is really well isolated in here. I'm very surprised at that, because not only is that easier to detect when you don't have an engine running, it's a pretty windy day out right now. You can see the trees moving around off to the side. And road noise as well is also pretty darn good. These tires are nice and quiet. When we go by semi-trucks, you don't hear too much of that, so you're pretty well isolated in this cabin. It's not fantastic. We're passing a blue tractor trailer right now, but it's certainly not bad. I think this is above average for electric cars in terms of wind and road noise. It's quite similar to the Hyundai Ioniq 5. I bet you can guess why. So generally, yeah, all very good. And furthermore, the screens are really easy to read. That's the instrument cluster screen and the center console touchscreen. The seat is comfortable. I found a nice cozy spot to be in, and it's nice to have the flat floor. It gives you more space, more options, plenty of shoulder room and all those types of things. I have headroom and all that. So yeah, I could easily put in a lot of miles on this car. And because this is the rear-wheel drive model with 310 miles of range, you could be on the interstate for a while at a time. So it's good to know. Anyway, yeah, great car on the interstate. With all the fun whiz-bang technology that this car has, of course that means tons of driver assist systems. That highway driving assist that I just told you about, of course, is chief among them, but this has something that is called Kia DriveWise, and that does include a big list of stuff. I'll go ahead and put it on the screen right now so you can check it out. Yeah, there's a lot going on. This car will do a lot of things for you. EVs are coming, and they're coming fast. More and more companies are dedicating more and more of their platforms to EVs, and some brands have just wholeheartedly said, we're going to be entirely EV by this year. Genesis is one of them. Cadillac is one of them. And obviously companies like Tesla and Polestars have been effectively EV from the beginning. So this Kia EV6 is the beginning of a trend, and it's one of the first ones out, right? But I have to say, this is probably one of the best ones built yet. Kia has been coming up with one home run after another when it comes to styling, and I think they did it again with this EV6. It has really nice flowing lines. It's got that steeply racked front and rear windshield, and those flow together really well. And it has some cool tricks that take advantage of the fact that it's an EV and doesn't need to have certain space for engines and cooling systems and exhaust systems, all that kind of stuff. So we're really starting to see car companies capitalize on the advantages that going electric can bring. And I think Kia, stylistically at least, is doing that better than anybody. And in terms of the mechanics and the driving of it, that is really strong as well. When it comes to the space inside and the ergonomics, I really like the infotainment system and the way that the center console is laid out, but I think there are a bit more opportunities in terms of giving space. And it would be cool to have a frunk too, even a small one. It'd be fun. All told though, I'm very impressed with this Kia EV6 and more feeling comfortable, even good about the fact that more and more cars are going to be EVs, because EVs do have a lot of advantages and the car companies are getting better at utilizing them. And this EV6 is a great example of exactly that. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you for watching. And if you are still watching, I would really appreciate it if you liked this video. That does really help me out a lot. Okay, goodbye. All right, what was I saying about torque response? Instant!